And now let us begin reading chapter 1 of The Time Traveler. Remember, questions will pop up that you are required to answer. Please use proper English, correct grammar, and punctuation. This is not YouTube. Do not write 10 exclamation points. Use proper English in your answers, please. Chapter 1, The Time Traveler. The narrator is at a dinner party at the home of the time traveler, a scientist who has created a time machine. The machine works for small objects, but he is making a bigger one for human time travel. I was very excited for dinner as I walked up to the house. It was Thursday night again, and that meant an evening with the gentleman. I entered the house and sat down at the table. The usual guests were all there, and we chatted while we waited for our host, the time traveler. He finally entered the room, smiling from ear to ear, and sat down. "Nice to see you all again, gentlemen," the time traveler said. "I am very anxious to continue our conversation from last week. Let's see, where did we leave off? Oh yes, the doctor was telling us all why it is impossible to travel through time." The doctor laughed. I believe that the conversation was over. I think I proved that there is no way that anyone could travel into the past or the future. What should we discuss this week, gentlemen? Asked the doctor. Politics? Business? Those both sound wonderful, doctor, interrupted the time traveler. But before we move on, there is one thing that I would like to show you all. The time traveler reached into his pocket and pulled out what looked like a little clock. As you all know, we have been debating about time travel for years. You also know that it is something that I have always believed is possible. He set the small device on the table. I have been working on this model for about 5 years, and I am finally ready to show it to you all. What is that? Asked the lawyer. Everyone had a curious look on their face. This is a miniature time machine. It can travel into the past or into the future. You see the lever there at the front? If you push it forward, it moves forward in time. If you pull it back, it goes back into the past. Everyone remained silent for a few seconds, then laughed loudly. "You almost had me believing you," yelled the psychologist. "But you are just joking, right? Let me prove to you that time travel is possible. Doctor, why don't you go ahead and push that little lever forward? I want everyone to watch the device very closely." The doctor reached over, touched the little lever with his finger, and very carefully pushed it forward. The device vanished, and all of the guests went silent. "Where did it go?" I asked in amazement. "It is traveling through time, into the future." Can you believe it? And the best part is that I have been working on another, larger one. It is big enough for a person to sit on, which means that soon we humans will be able to travel through time. I just need another few days before it is ready. There were more looks of confusion and curiosity all around the table. Then the lawyer started shaking his head. "I don't believe it. This was just some sort of magic trick. And a very good magic trick at that," he laughed nervously. "Who else thinks that was just a trick?" the time traveler asked. Every single guest in the room raised their hand. The time traveler rubbed his head. "If that did not convince you, then I guess I will have to prove it to you another way. Let us have dinner and move on to other topics. Next week, I will convince all of you." The following Thursday, I was the last to arrive at the time traveler's house for dinner. I sat down at the table, and everyone was talking about where their host could be. "He's probably in the back room practicing another magic trick," said the doctor, and everybody laughed. Just then, the door to the back room burst open. There stood the time traveler, looking exhausted. His clothes were filthy, his hair was messy, and he had a small cut on his face. His hair even had streaks of gray in it, which were not there last week. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Where have you been?" "I have been to the future. I barely made it back alive. I must eat, then I will tell you the entire story after dinner." Now, students, you can close the Zaption app and open Quizlet. Now you will practice the new vocabulary words. You can play games in Quizlet or practice using the flashcards. But you must practice the vocabulary each week because I will check it and it will be part of your homework grid.